He poisoned the last thing my dead wife ever planted. He didn't realize he'd just declared war on a man who understood how foundations fail. The smell hit me first. It wasn't the sweet, powdery scent of the Mr. Lincoln hybrid teas that I had spent 12 years coaxing out of the stubborn Georgia clay. It wasn't the earthy, grounding smell of mulch and morning dew. It was sharp, chemical, and acrid. It tasted like copper on the back of my tongue. I stood on my back porch, coffee mug suspended halfway to my mouth, staring at a scene that made my knees lock up and my stomach drop through the floorboards. My garden was dead. Not just wilted. Not just struggling from the heat. It was black. The 12 bushes that lined the cedar fence, the ones Elena had planted the spring before the cancer took her, were shriveled, oily, and twisted into agonizing shapes. The leaves had turned a bruised purple-black, crunching into dust the second a breeze touched them. The blooms, which had been vibrant red yesterday afternoon, were hanging like rot on a vine. I walked down the steps, my boots crunching on the grass. I didn't cry. I couldn't. I felt a cold, hollow vacuum opening up in the center of my chest where my heart used to be. I touched the stem of the prize-winning bush on the far left. It snapped off in my hand, dry and brittle. "Morning, Hank. Shame about the flowers." The voice came from over the fence. It was loud, grating, and dripping with false sympathy. I looked up. Greg was standing on his deck, leaning over the railing with a smirk that he didn't even try to hide. Greg moved in 2 years ago. He's the kind of guy who buys a massive gas grill he uses once a year and blasts talk radio in his backyard every Sunday morning. He hated the bees. He hated the petals that blew into his pool. He hated me. "What happened, Greg?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Looks like blight," he shrugged, taking a sip from a travel mug. "Or maybe you just lost your touch. Old age comes for us all, right? At least now I won't have those damn bees swarming my guests this weekend." I didn't answer him. I turned around and walked back into the house. I went straight to my office and pulled up the Ring app on my desktop. I have a floodlight camera mounted on the back corner of the eaves. It covers the fence line. I scrolled back. 2 a.m. 3 a.m. 4 a.m. There. 5:15 a.m. Just as the sun was thinking about rising. The footage was grainy, but clear enough. A figure walked up to the fence on Greg's side. He was holding a pump sprayer, the kind you use for industrial pest control. He climbed up on a step stool. He didn't spray his side. He extended the wand over the fence, aiming it directly at the roots of my roses. He soaked them. He moved down the line with the efficiency of an executioner. He saturated the soil. I watched the video 3 times. I saved it. I downloaded it to a hard drive. I burned it onto a USB stick. Then I walked next door. I rang the bell. Greg answered, still wearing that smirk. "You sprayed them," I said. I held up my phone, showing him the freeze frame of him holding the wand. "I have you on camera, Greg. That's Roundup. Or something worse." Greg's smile didn't falter. He stepped out onto his porch, closing the door behind him so his wife wouldn't hear. "That?" He laughed, a short, sharp bark. "I was spraying for weeds on my side. The wind must have carried it. You know how the wind is. Tricky stuff. There was no wind at 5 a.m., Greg. You leaned over the fence. You killed Elena's garden." "Prove it," he hissed, stepping into my personal space. His breath smelled of stale coffee and aggression. "Prove the wind didn't carry it." "You can't. It's my word against a grainy video. And honestly, Hank, I did you a favor. Those things were an eyesore. Plant something else if you care that much. Just make sure it doesn't drop leaves in my pool, or I'll kill that too." He slammed the door in my face. The sound echoed in the quiet cul-de-sac. I stood there for a long time, staring at the wood grain of his door. My hands were shaking. Not from fear, but from the effort it took not to put my fist through the panel. Plant something else, I repeated to myself. I walked back to my house. I went to the garage. I sat on my stool and looked at the wall of framed degrees and certifications gathering dust. Henry J. Miller, Civil Engineering. Soil Mechanics Specialist. Structural Integrity Consultant. Greg thought I was just an old man with a watering can. He didn't know I spent 40 years calculating how the earth moves. He didn't know I spent my career understanding how root systems interact with foundations, how hydraulic pressure can crack concrete, and how invasive species can reshape a landscape if left unchecked. He wanted me to plant something else? Fine. I would plant something else. I got in my truck and drove to a specialty nursery 3 towns over. A place that didn't ask questions. I need bamboo, I told the owner, a guy named Silas who looked like he'd been potting plants since the Nixon administration. Clumping or running? Silas asked, wiping dirt off his hands. Running, I said. Philosticas. The aggressive stuff. The stuff that grows 3 feet a day. Silas raised an eyebrow. You know what that does, right? That's biological warfare. You put that in the ground, it never leaves. It's illegal in some HOAs. I don't have an HOA, I said. And I have a neighbor who likes to poison roses. Silas nodded slowly. He understood. I got some golden vivax in the back. It's nasty. The rhizomes, the underground roots, they travel 20 feet lateral before they shoot up. They can punch through asphalt. They can lift a deck. Perfect, I said. Give me 20 pots. I spent the next 2 days digging. I dug a trench right along the fence line, exactly 6 inches from the property divider. I amended the soil. I added high nitrogen fertilizer, bamboo rocket fuel. I planted the bamboo thick. I watered it. I patted the dirt down. Usually, when you plant bamboo, you install a barrier. A thick, 60 mm plastic sheet that goes 3 feet down to stop the spread. I installed a barrier, all right. On my side. I dug a trench on the side facing my house and dropped in a heavy-duty rhizome shield, sealing my yard off from the monster I was unleashing. But on Greg's side? Nothing. Just soft, loamy soil leading directly toward his pristine lawn and his in-ground pool. I stood back and looked at the row of innocent-looking green stalks. Grow, I whispered. The first sign of trouble appeared 3 weeks later. I was in the kitchen, washing dishes, when I saw a truck pull up to Greg's house. A fencing contractor. Greg was out there, pointing at the property line, gesturing wildly. I dried my hands and walked out to the porch. Greg saw me. Hey! Killer, he shouted. I see you planted some grass. Ugly stuff. But whatever. I'm putting up a vinyl privacy fence. I don't want to look at your face anymore. Vinyl is expensive, Greg, I called back. Make sure you dig deep. I got the best guys in town, he sneered. The crew started digging post holes. About 10 minutes later, the foreman waved Greg over. He was holding a post hole digger, looking confused. I walked closer to the property line, staying on my side, pretending to inspect my gutters. What is it? Greg asked, annoyed. We hit something, the foreman said. Roots. Big ones. We can't get the auger through. Roots? Greg frowned. There are no trees here. The old man's roses are dead. Not rose roots, the foreman said. He reached into the hole and pulled out a thick, pale, ropey runner. It looked like an alien tentacle. This looks like bamboo. Bamboo? Greg laughed. Bamboo grows in China, not here. Just cut it. We tried, the foreman said. It's everywhere, boss. We dug 3 holes. This stuff is webbed under the whole side yard. If we cut it, it'll just grow back double. You got an infestation. Greg turned and glared at me. He pointed. What did you plant? Just some ground cover, I said innocently. Fast growing. For privacy. Since you killed the roses. Bamboo, he shrieked. You planted bamboo? That stuff spreads. Only if you don't contain it, I said. My side is fine. I installed a barrier. Did you install a barrier, Greg? It's crossing the line, he yelled. You have to remove it. Actually, I leaned against the fence post. According to state property law, and I checked this with my lawyer yesterday, once a plant crosses the property line, the portion on your side is your property. You can trim it. You can dig it up. But you can't touch the mother plant on my side. That's vandalism. And we know how the police feel about vandalism, don't we? Greg turned purple. I'm suing you. Good luck, I said. Plants grow where they grow. It's nature, Greg. Like the wind. The fencing crew packed up. They couldn't set the posts because the ground was too unstable from the rhizome network. They charged him a dry run fee of $500 and left. But that was just the appetizer. The main course arrived in August. It had been a hot, humid summer. Perfect bamboo weather. The stalks on my side were now 12 feet tall, creating a dense, lush green wall that completely blocked his house from view. It was beautiful. On his side, however, it was a war zone. Shoots, sharp, hard spears of bamboo began to puncture his lawn. They didn't just grow, they erupted. One day the grass would be smooth, the next day a 6-inch spike would be sticking up, hard enough to puncture a tire or a foot. I watched him out there every evening after work, sweating, cursing, hacking at them with a machete. He looked miserable. Then came the pool party. It was Labor Day weekend. Greg had 20 people over. Music blasting. Kids screaming. I was inside, reading a book, when the screaming changed pitch. It wasn't happy screaming. It was panic. Dad! The deck! I walked to the window. Greg was standing by his pool. He was looking down at the concrete decking that surrounded the water. A massive crack had appeared, running from the edge of the pool to the grass. And pushing up through the crack, splitting the 4-inch concrete slab like it was a saltine cracker, was a cluster of thick, green bamboo shoots. The hydraulic pressure of a growing bamboo rhizome is powerful enough to lift pavement. It had found a weakness in his pool deck and exploited it. My pool! Greg screamed. It's cracking the pool. I walked out to the fence. Problem, Greg? He ran over to the fence. He looked like he hadn't slept in a week. You did this. You destroyed my pool deck. I didn't touch your deck, I said. Must be the roots. They seek water, Greg. And your pool, well, it's a big bucket of water. Maybe if you hadn't poisoned the soil near the fence, the roots wouldn't have migrated so fast looking for clean dirt. I'm going to kill you, he shouted. I have cameras, Greg. Remember? He called a landscaper the next day. Not a mow and blow guy. A heavy excavation crew. They showed up with a backhoe. They told him the only way to stop it was to dig a trench 4 feet deep along the entire property line and install a steel barrier, then rip up the entire lawn to sift out the roots. The quote was $18,000. I stood on my porch and listened to him scream at the contractor. 18 grand? For grass? For excavation, the contractor said. And deck repair. You gotta rip that concrete up, boss. The roots are under the rebar. If you don't get them all, they'll just crack the new pour in a month. Greg kicked his own tire. But then, the contractor paused. He was looking at the ground near the corner of the lot, where the bamboo was thickest. Wait a second, the contractor said. He knelt down. He dug a little with a hand trowel. He hit something hard. Not a root. Plastic. Whoa, the contractor said. Stop everything. What? Greg snapped. Did you find gold? I found a pipe, the contractor said. A big one. Corrugated black plastic. Looks like the main storm drain for the subdivision. My ears perked up. I knew that pipe. I was a civil engineer. I knew the plat maps of this neighborhood better than the city planner. That pipe ran right along the easement line. It carried the runoff for the entire block. The bamboo, the contractor said, his voice dropping to a hush. It's wrapped around the pipe. It's crushed it. Look at this. He pulled up a piece of the black plastic pipe. It was strangled by thick, white roots. If we pull this bamboo out, the contractor said, standing up and wiping his brow, we rip out the drainage for the whole street. The city will have to come in. This is a hazmat situation, practically. So fix it. Greg yelled. I can't, the contractor said. I'm not licensed for municipal utility repair. And neither are you. If you touch that pipe, and the street floods, the city will fine you into oblivion. You need a specialist. And a permit. How much? Greg whispered. To replace the main line and remediate the bamboo? Probably 30-40 grand. Easy. Greg sank onto his front steps. He put his head in his hands. I took a sip of my coffee. The lawsuit came a week later. Not from Greg. From me. I sued him for the replacement value of the roses. I hired Dr. Green again. We went to court. We showed the video of the poisoning. We showed the arborist report valuing the mature bushes at $1,500 each. The judge, a stern woman named Judge Reynolds, looked at the evidence. She looked at Greg, who was shaking in his cheap suit. Mr. Gregg, the judge said. You committed a malicious act of destruction. You used a banned herbicide in a residential zone. And now you are complaining about the natural consequences of ecological imbalance? He planted a monster. Greg cried. It ruined my pool. The bamboo was on his property, the judge ruled. It spread to yours because you failed to maintain your land. The poisoning, however, is a criminal tort. She awarded me treble damages. Triple the value. $18,000 for the roses. Plus legal fees. But the real blow came from the city. The contractor had to report the damaged drain pipe. The city inspector came out. They traced the damage back to the bamboo, yes, but they also found the soil contamination from the Roundup Greg had sprayed. Because the poison had leached into the storm drain easement, the EPA got involved. They fined Greg $10,000 for illegal discharge of hazardous chemicals into a waterway. And they ordered him to pay for the drainage repair because his malicious act of soil poisoning had compromised the ground integrity, allowing the bamboo to invade the utility easement faster than normal. Total bill for Greg, $65,000. He didn't have it. He had refinanced his house to put in the pool. He was underwater. He put the house up for sale 3 months later. The listing photos were hilarious. The realtor tried to Photoshop the bamboo out, but you could still see the cracks in the pool deck. He had to disclose the invasive root system and the drainage easement damage to potential buyers. Nobody wanted it. It sat on the market for 6 months. He dropped the price by $100,000. Finally, a developer bought it. A guy who wanted to tear it down and build a duplex. I met the developer last week. Nice guy. He asked me about the bamboo. I can take it out, I told him. Now that Greg is gone. No need, the developer said. I like it. It's a great privacy screen. Keeps the noise down. Greg moved into an apartment complex on the other side of town. I heard from a mutual acquaintance that he doesn't have a balcony. No outdoor space at all. I replanted the roses last week. I put them in raised beds this time, safe behind a concrete retaining wall I built myself. They are blooming. Red, vibrant, and alive. The bees are back. They buzz around the flowers, happy and busy. Sometimes, I sit on my porch and listen to the wind rustling through the bamboo leaves. It's a dry, rattling sound. It sounds like applause. Greg wanted to control nature. He wanted to poison the earth to save himself some skimming work. He forgot that nature always wins. Especially when it has a civil engineer on its side. So, tell me. Am I the monster for planting an invasive species that destroyed my neighbor's property value, or did he just reap the harvest he sowed?
If you have made it this far and want to see more videos like this, then kindly subscribe and turn on notifications so you may never miss another story like this.